Welcome back to my English podcast. My name is Natasha, and I will be your host today. If you are new here, welcome. On this channel, we upload episodes every day to help you improve your English listening, speaking, and vocabulary skills. So make sure to stay with us and listen carefully. Today's episode is titled Upper Intermediate Topics and Stories. I'm going to share some useful English phrases and vocabulary with you through stories and examples from daily life. Let's start with something simple but interesting. Imagine you are traveling to another city for work. You check into a hotel and the receptionist says, "Please fill out this registration form." You might respond, "Of course." "Could you give me a pen?" This shows how polite requests work in English. Politeness is very important when you are dealing with services like hotels, restaurants, or even government offices. I remember once when I traveled to another city for a conference. The receptionist at the hotel told me that my room was not ready yet. Instead of getting upset, I said, "That's all right. Could you suggest a nice cafe nearby where I can wait?" She smiled and gave me directions. Later, when I returned, she upgraded my room because I was patient and polite. This story shows how kindness and communication can bring positive results. Now, let's practice another situation. Imagine you are in a business meeting. Your colleague Daniel is giving a presentation, and he says something that you do not fully agree with. Instead of saying, "You are wrong," you can say, "That's an interesting point, but I see it a little differently." This type of phrase is very useful because it shows respect while sharing your own opinion. I once attended a meeting where a colleague named Sarah presented her ideas about how to improve customer service. I thought her plan was good, but I had another idea. Instead of disagreeing directly, I said, "I like the direction you are going. Sarah, perhaps we could also consider creating a feedback form for customers." She accepted the suggestion, and we combined our ideas. That meeting taught me that the way you express disagreement can make teamwork much stronger. Let's move to another daily life example. Imagine you are in a restaurant with your husband or wife. The waiter comes and asks, "Are you ready to order?" You might reply, "Yes, we would like some grilled chicken with rice, please." Adding please and thank you may sound small, but they make your communication smoother and more natural. One time I went to a restaurant with my husband. The waiter looked very tired, probably because it was a busy evening. After we finished eating, I told him, "Thank you for your service. Everything was delicious." His face brightened up, and he even brought us free tea as a gift. A few simple words made a big difference. Now let's think about another useful situation. Imagine you are shopping in a market. You see an item you like, but you are not sure about the price. You can say, "Excuse me, how much does this cost?" If you think it is too expensive, you might say politely, "Is there any discount available?" This shows how you can negotiate without sounding rude. I remember once when I visited a local market in another city. I saw a beautiful handmade basket, but the seller asked for a high price. Instead of arguing, I smiled and said, "It is really nice, but my budget is a little lower. Could you offer me a better price?" He agreed and gave me a discount. Not only did I buy the basket, but we also had a friendly conversation about his craft. This kind of respectful language helps you connect with people. In today's world, conversations are not only face-to-face. We also talk a lot through emails. Writing professional emails is another important skill. For example, when you write to your manager, instead of starting with "Hey," you should say, "Dear Mr. Smith" or "Dear Miss Taylor." At the end, instead of just writing your name, you can add "Best regards" or "Sincerely." These small details show professionalism and respect. I once had a student who used to write emails to his manager starting with "Hi, boss." His manager told him it sounded too casual. After learning some formal phrases, he started his emails with "Dear Mr. Johnson" and closed with "Kind regards." His manager noticed the improvement and even praised his professionalism. This shows how the right words can change how people see you. Another helpful example is how to ask for clarification. Sometimes in a meeting or in class, you do not understand something clearly. Instead of staying silent, you can say, "Could you please explain that again?" Or, "I am not sure I understood. Could you give an example?" This shows confidence and a willingness to learn. I remember once during my university days, a professor explained a very complex topic. Most of the students stayed silent, but one student, Ahmed, raised his hand and said, "Professor, could you explain that part again with an example?" The professor gave a simple story to explain, and suddenly everyone understood. That day, I realized that asking questions is not a weakness. It is actually a sign of strength. Another important situation we all face is when we need to give directions. Imagine someone stops you on the street and asks, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the train station?" A clear and polite way to respond is, "Yes, go straight ahead for 2 blocks, then turn left. The station will be on your right." Giving directions in a calm and structured way makes it much easier for the other person to understand. I remember one day when I was walking in my city, a tourist named Robert asked me for directions to the Old Town Market. He looked confused with his map. So instead of just pointing, I explained step by step, "Go down this street, turn right after the bank, and then follow the road until you see the market entrance." He was so thankful and even said, "You explained it better than my map." That moment showed me how valuable clear communication is. Now, let's look at another useful area, making appointments. Imagine you want to see a doctor. When you call the clinic, you can say, "Hello, I would like to book an appointment with Dr. Adams, please." The receptionist might ask, "What day and time would be convenient for you?" You could answer, "Tuesday morning would be great if possible." This type of polite and structured language helps keep the conversation smooth. Once, I had to book an appointment with my dentist. At first, I said, "I need to see the doctor." The receptionist sounded a little confused. Then I corrected myself and said, "I would like to make an appointment with Dr. Wilson for next Wednesday afternoon, please." Immediately, the receptionist understood and booked the time. From that day, I learned that using complete, polite sentences makes communication much easier. Let's also practice small talk, which is very important in English-speaking cultures. Small talk means short, friendly conversations about topics like the weather, travel, or daily life. For example, when you meet your neighbor in the elevator, you can say, "Good morning. How are you today?" They might answer, "I'm doing well, thank you. How about you?" Even though it is a short exchange, it builds friendliness and connection. I once had a neighbor named Mrs. Green. Every morning we met in the hallway, and she always greeted me with, "Beautiful weather today, isn't it?" At first I thought it was just a habit, but then I realized it made our building feel warmer and friendlier. These small conversations created a sense of community, and I looked forward to seeing her every morning. Another very practical skill is talking about plans. Imagine a friend invites you for dinner, but you are busy. Instead of just saying no, you can say, "Thank you for the invitation, but I already have plans that evening. Could we meet another day?" This shows respect and keeps the relationship strong. One time, my colleague Michael invited me to his house for dinner with his family. Unfortunately, I had already promised to attend my cousin's wedding. Instead of rejecting directly, I said, "Michael, thank you so much for the invitation. I cannot come this time because of a family event, but I would love to visit you next weekend." He smiled and said, "Of course." next weekend works. This showed me how polite refusal can still strengthen relationships. Another situation where English is very useful is when you need help. Imagine you are at the train station and your ticket machine does not work. You can ask someone nearby, "Excuse me, could you help me with this machine?" Or, "Sorry to bother you, but I am not sure how this works." These polite requests are very natural, and often people are happy to help. I remember once when I was traveling in a new city. I could not understand how to use the subway card machine. I asked a man standing near me, "Excuse me, could you please show me how to use this card?" He not only helped me buy the ticket, but also explained which train line I should take. His kindness saved me from a lot of stress. That day, I realized that asking for help politely can make strangers into temporary friends. Let's now practice talking about experiences with different activities. You can say, "Last weekend I went hiking with my husband Thomas. We explored a nearby trail, enjoyed the scenery, and took photographs." Or, "We attended a cooking class and learned new recipes." Sharing experiences makes conversations lively and relatable. I remember sharing a cooking workshop experience with my friend Rachel. I said, "We learned to make traditional desserts." The instructor explained every step clearly, and the final dishes were delicious. She was interested and asked for the recipe. Discussing activities creates interactive conversations. Another practical area is discussing hobbies and skills. You can say, "I practice yoga to improve flexibility and reduce stress," or "I am learning digital photography, which allows me to capture beautiful moments." Including benefits makes your explanation meaningful. I remember sharing my painting hobby with my colleague Emma. I said, "I enjoy painting landscapes because it helps me relax and express creativity." She shared her own interest in photography, and we exchanged tips. Talking about hobbies promotes engagement and shared learning. Next, let's focus on discussing experiences in social settings. You can say, "I attended a cultural festival where I watched traditional dances and tried local food," or "I participated in a charity event, and it was rewarding to help others." Sharing social experiences encourages dialogue. I remember describing a festival I attended with my husband Thomas. I said, "We enjoyed folk music performances, visited craft stalls, and tried handmade snacks. It was lively and colorful." My friend Emma became interested and wanted to join next year. Talking about social experiences builds connection and enthusiasm. Another practical skill is giving clear instructions politely. You can say, "First wash your hands, then prepare the ingredients. Next, cook on medium heat for 20 minutes. Or, turn right at the next intersection and continue straight for 2 blocks. Clear steps ensure understanding. I remember guiding my neighbor, Mrs. Green, in preparing a simple dish. I said, "First cut the vegetables, then heat the pan. Next, add oil and sauté the vegetables." She followed each step and completed the recipe successfully. Clear instructions prevent mistakes and build confidence. Let's continue with talking about achievements. You can say, "I completed an online course last month, which improved my communication skills." Or, "I organized a successful community event with my friends." Including results or benefits makes the statement engaging. I remember describing a workshop I attended with my husband Thomas. I said, "The workshop helped me understand digital tools better, and I could apply them at work immediately." My friend Rachel was motivated to join similar workshops. Talking about achievements encourages learning and inspiration. Another useful area is discussing daily routines with flexibility. You can say, "In the morning, I go for a short walk. After breakfast, I work from home, and in the evening, I spend time reading or cooking with my husband Thomas." Including varied activities makes your narration dynamic. I remember sharing my routine with my colleague Emma. I said, I usually start my day with meditation, then work for a few hours, and in the evening, I enjoy preparing dinner and relaxing. She found the routine relatable and asked questions about timings. Detailed routines encourage engagement and learning. Another practical skill is talking about transportation experiences. You can say, I usually take the train to work. It is fast, but it can be crowded during peak hours. Or, I enjoy cycling when the weather is nice because it is healthy and refreshing. Including reasons makes your explanation clear. Talking about food experiences is another engaging area for daily conversation. You can say, yesterday I tried a new Italian restaurant. The pasta was creamy and the dessert was delicious. Or, I like visiting local markets to find fresh vegetables and spices. Sharing food experiences makes conversations lively and relatable. I remember describing a breakfast I had at a small cafe to my colleague Anna. I said, I ordered avocado toast and a latte. The presentation was simple but beautiful, and the flavors were well balanced. She seemed intrigued and asked for the cafe's location. Sharing meals or recipes often sparks curiosity and interaction. Another interesting topic is talking about shopping experiences. You can say, I bought a new pair of shoes that are very comfortable. Or, I went to a bookstore and discovered a few interesting novels. Including details such as comfort, style, or price makes your story richer. I remember narrating a shopping trip to my friend Liam. I said, I was searching for a gift for my sister and found a handmade scarf. It was soft, warm, and perfect for winter. He smiled and mentioned he might look for gifts there as well. Talking about shopping creates relatable and practical dialogue. Discussing weather is simple but very useful in everyday conversations. You can say, it's been raining all week, which makes the streets slippery, or the sun is shining, and it feels warm and comfortable outside. Talking about weather is a good conversation starter and can lead to more extended discussions. I remember telling my neighbor Maria about a rainy day last month. I said, the rain was heavy, so I stayed indoors and read a book. It was peaceful and quiet. She responded by sharing how she enjoyed baking during the same weather. Discussing weather often naturally leads to sharing personal experiences. A practical topic is talking about health and fitness. You can say, I started jogging in the mornings to improve my stamina, or I have a yoga routine that helps me relax after work. Including the benefits of the activity makes your statements meaningful. I remember sharing my swimming routine with a friend, James. I said, swimming in the evening helps me clear my mind and strengthens my muscles. He was inspired and mentioned he might try swimming as well. Sharing healthy habits can encourage others to engage in similar routines. Talking about books and reading is another versatile topic. You can say, I recently read a mystery novel that had an unexpected ending. Or, I enjoy reading biographies because they inspire me. Giving reasons for your preference makes your description more engaging. I remember discussing a historical book with my friend Sarah. I said, the book explored the life of a famous explorer, and it was fascinating to learn about the challenges he faced. She shared a recommendation for another book, which made our conversation more interactive. Another useful skill is talking about movies and television. You can say, I watched a comedy movie last night, and it made me laugh a lot. Or, I am following a series that explores different cultures around the world. Mentioning your reaction helps the listener understand your experience better. I remember explaining a documentary I watched to my colleague Daniel. I said, the documentary showed the daily lives of people in remote villages. It was eye-opening to see their customs and traditions. He became curious and wanted to watch it as well. Talking about films or documentaries can broaden conversations and introduce learning opportunities. Talking about technology is also relevant for everyday conversation. You can say, I recently started using a new phone app that helps organize my tasks. Or, I upgraded my laptop because it runs faster and improves my productivity. Including reasons for your choices makes your statements more informative. I remember sharing my experience with a new task management app with my friend Lucy. I said, the app sends reminders and helps me track my goals. It has improved my daily routine significantly. She was interested and planned to try the app herself. Discussing technology helps others learn about useful tools. A practical topic is discussing transportation. You can say, I prefer using the metro because it is fast and reliable. Or, I sometimes take a bicycle ride through the park to relax. Mentioning advantages or challenges makes the conversation more engaging. I remember telling my colleague Tom about my train journey. I said, the train is usually crowded in the morning, but it is efficient and saves a lot of time. He shared his own experience of cycling to work and compared the benefits. Discussing transportation allows sharing practical insights. Talking about learning experiences can be helpful in conversations. You can say, I recently attended a workshop on creative writing, and it was very informative. Or, I am taking an online course in digital marketing to improve my career skills. Sharing learning experiences often encourages others to pursue education or personal growth. I remember describing an art workshop I attended to my friend Olivia. I said, the instructor showed several techniques for painting landscapes. I learned how to blend colors effectively. She was inspired and mentioned she would like to attend a similar workshop. Talking about learning experiences promotes motivation and mutual interest. Discussing events or celebrations is engaging and relatable. You can say, I attended a local music festival, and the atmosphere was lively. Or, I joined a community gathering where we shared stories and homemade dishes. Including your feelings or reactions makes the narration more vivid. I remember talking about a festival I visited with my friend Michael. I said, the festival had colorful decorations, street performers, and food stalls. It was vibrant and exciting. He was curious and asked about the schedule for the next year. Discussing events encourages interaction and excitement. Talking about work and professional life is also important. You can say, I had a productive day at work, completing all my assignments on time, or I attended a team meeting where we discussed new strategies. Sharing details about your workday makes conversations more meaningful and informative. I remember explaining a project I managed to my colleague Anna. I said, I coordinated with different teams, organized the schedule, and ensured all tasks were completed efficiently. She asked about the challenges I faced, which led to a longer interactive discussion. Discussing work experiences allows exchanging ideas and solutions. Another useful topic is discussing hobbies that involve creativity. You can say, I enjoy gardening because it helps me relax and beautify my surroundings. Or I like learning calligraphy because it improves my focus and patience. Sharing hobbies encourages others to explore new activities. I remember sharing my experience of starting a small herb garden with my friend Julia. I said, planting herbs like basil and mint is satisfying. Watching them grow daily brings joy. She became interested and asked for tips on starting her own garden. Discussing creative hobbies inspires curiosity and practical engagement. Talking about travel experiences can also enrich conversations. You can say, I visited a historic town last month and explored its museums and old streets. Or, I took a short trip to the countryside, enjoying fresh air and quiet surroundings. Including sensory details makes your narration vivid. I remember describing a visit to a coastal town to my friend Daniel. I said, the town had charming streets, a beautiful lighthouse, and fresh seafood. Walking along the beach was refreshing. He was excited to visit a similar place himself. Discussing travel experiences often sparks recommendations and shared stories. Talking about cultural experiences is engaging. You can say, I attended a traditional dance performance, and the costumes were colorful and elaborate. Or, I joined a cooking class that focused on local cuisine. Including personal reactions makes the conversation more lively. I remember telling my friend Rachel about a cultural workshop I attended. I said, the workshop allowed me to learn traditional crafts. It was fascinating to see the intricate techniques used. She showed interest and asked for the next available session. Sharing cultural experiences encourages curiosity and dialogue. Discussing challenges and how you overcame them is also helpful. You can say, I struggled with public speaking initially, but attending a workshop helped me improve my confidence. Or, learning a new language was difficult, but regular practice made it easier. Sharing challenges humanizes your conversation and makes it relatable. I remember describing my experience learning a new software program to my colleague Peter. I said, at first I found it complicated, but watching tutorials and practicing daily made me comfortable with it. He shared his own experience, which led to exchanging helpful tips. Discussing challenges fosters empathy and learning. Talking about weekend routines is practical. You can say, on Saturdays, I enjoy taking long walks in the park. Or, on Sundays, I usually read a book and relax at home. Including specific activities makes the routine relatable. I remember sharing my weekend routine with my friend Lisa. I said, I usually start Saturday with a short jog, then visit a local market for fresh produce. It's a great way to start the weekend. She enjoyed hearing about the schedule and shared her own weekend plan. Discussing routines provides relatable content for everyday conversations. I remember sharing my favorite band with my friend Emma. I said, I like this band because their lyrics are meaningful and the melodies are relaxing. She shared her favorite artists, which led to exchanging playlists. Discussing music encourages personal expression and connection. Another useful area is talking about volunteering experiences. You can say, I volunteer at a local shelter once a week, or I help organize community cleanup events. Sharing the purpose and your feelings makes your experience meaningful. I remember describing my volunteering at a library to my friend Rachel. I said, I help organize books and assist visitors. It feels rewarding to support the community. She was inspired and asked how she could get involved locally. Talking about volunteering inspires others and creates meaningful dialogue. Discussing outdoor activities is engaging. You can say, I enjoy hiking because it refreshes my mind and strengthens my body. Or, cycling in the mornings energizes me for the day. Including benefits makes your activity meaningful. I remember sharing my weekend cycling experience with my friend Daniel. I said, I rode along the riverside path and enjoyed the fresh air. It's a great way to start the day. He seemed excited and asked for the route details. Discussing outdoor activities promotes motivation and practical tips. Another practical topic is talking about pets. You can say, I have a dog named Max who is very playful. Or, I enjoy taking care of my cat because it's relaxing and comforting. Including details about behavior or personality makes the conversation more lively. I remember describing my experience with a neighbor's puppy to my friend Lisa. I said, the puppy was energetic and curious. It followed me around while I watered the plants. She laughed and shared stories about her own pets. Talking about animals creates a warm and engaging conversation. Discussing personal projects is also useful. You can say, I am building a small wooden bookshelf at home, or I am learning how to create digital art illustrations. Sharing progress and challenges makes the project relatable and interactive. I remember explaining a DIY project to my colleague Anna. I said, I started constructing a small table using wood and simple tools. It required careful measurements and patience. She was interested and asked for guidance to start her own project. Discussing personal projects encourages creativity and shared experiences. Talking about weekend getaways is engaging. You can say, I visited a nearby town for the weekend. We explored local cafes, parks, and historic sites. Or, I went to the mountains for a short trip to enjoy the fresh air. Including details of the experience makes it vivid. I remember describing a weekend trip to my friend Michael. I said, we hiked up a hill, enjoyed panoramic views, and had a picnic by the river. The scenery was breathtaking. He became curious and asked for tips on visiting similar places. Talking about trips promotes travel ideas and engagement. Another practical topic is discussing cultural experiences through food. You can say, I tried traditional dishes from another country, and the flavors were unique. Or, I learned to cook a local recipe that my family loved. Including reactions makes your experience engaging. I remember sharing my experience cooking a traditional dish from Thailand with my friend Emma. I said, I followed the recipe carefully, and the flavors were spicy, sweet, and sour. It was a new experience. She was intrigued and wanted to try it herself. Talking about cultural food experiences encourages curiosity and shared learning. Discussing simple daily observations is also valuable. You can say, I noticed the sunrise was beautiful this morning with pink and orange hues. Or, the streets were quiet today and it felt peaceful walking outside. Including sensory details makes observations vivid. I remember describing a morning walk to my friend Daniel. I said, the dew on the grass and the fresh air made it a refreshing start to the day. He agreed and shared his own morning routine observations. Talking about simple observations creates easy and relatable conversation topics.